bane of every high school senior's existence, the college admission essay. And for anyone applying to graduate school, it's the perspective of study. The reason these essays are so difficult is because they ask us to fit who we are, what our life goals are, and what you want to be when you grow up, all into 2 pages. If you're anything like me, I didn't know who I wanted to be at 18 years old. And there are still times that I don't have the perfect plan for my life. Finding yourself is part of life's journey, and it's okay not to have all the answers. The reason those college admission essays are so hard to conceptualize is because we learn more about ourselves when we take steps into new environments, like college or graduate school. These are the places where we find our voice, where we find what we're passionate about. However, as graduation approaches, we're faced with the realization that there wasn't a course titled How to Channel What You're Passionate About into a Career. This is my 3rd time doing this college experience. And after successfully graduating from my master's program before being accepted to the Ph.D. program here at Kennesaw State University, I took a year searching for jobs in my field. And during that year, I felt lost and unanchored. There was nowhere for me to go, nothing for me to channel my passions and energies into, and no one to advise my life's path. Trust me when I say it's not a feeling I ever want to have again. The problem was I didn't leave college knowing how to consistently pursue the topics that I was passionate about. You see, the difference between finding your voice and using your voice is the difference between knowing what motivates you and sharing that motivation with others. And the lack of young professional engagement is truly paradoxical because young professionals can find connections from any avenue. The key to networking is going out, making introductions, and meeting people. Using your voice is the same process with one added step, expressing your opinions and your beliefs. You see, finding your voice is talking, but I'm not advocating everybody rush out and take public speaking classes. Finding your voice also means being willing to connect with others and share your ideas. We would almost assume that if we found our voice, then we're using it, but that isn't necessarily the case. In 1970, Frank Ellsworth and Martha Burns published a chronology of student activism in higher education, aptly titled Student Activism in American Higher Education, where they found that students have been activists in American higher education since the colonial era, which isn't surprising. Higher education offers a new environment with new levels of independence and new experiences. But being engaged as a student doesn't necessarily translate to being engaged as a young professional. Harvard University researcher Pippa Norris found a significant decrease in young professional political activism. In her 2004 study, most political activists tended to be mid-career professionals. Maybe the lack of young professional engagement is due to needing to pay for a car payment or mortgage, having children or having a family, or even becoming very, very developed and focused on your career path. But I would also add to the list that young professionals are not engaged and using their voices because they don't know the avenues available to them after they graduate. For me, I am truly passionate about organ donation and history. And during the year between my master's and my doctorate program, I followed one of those passions straight to the local history museum in Kennesaw. The museum asks that all of its regular volunteers volunteer for 3 hours, 1 day a week. Now that time commitment is completely doable, and it's a win-win for me and the museum. It takes very little amount of my time, none of my resources. The museum gets help with whatever projects they have going on that week, and I get to share my love of history with anyone that walks through the door the time that I'm there. And during using social networking, such as volunteering, to build your connections can also help you meet people who you might not have otherwise gotten to meet in your community. During my time at the museum, I have had the opportunity to work many special events. And at one of those special events, my job was to hand out wristbands. Now, all of the volunteers were told ahead of time, if you see a city employee with a city badge clearly visible, they don't need to have a wristband. But there are 2 things you should know about me. The first is I'm a rule follower. The second is that I have an innate sense of justice, and it didn't seem fair to me that everybody else entering the museum had to wear a wristband, and city employees didn't. So to the only city employee that came up to me that day, I told him that much, and he said, "Of course I'll wear a wristband, I'm just like anybody else." Which made no sense to me at the time. Yes, you are just like anybody else. Here's your wristband, enjoy the museum. Later, a staff person told me, "You just required the mayor of Kennesaw to wear a wristband." I didn't know he was the mayor. I didn't read his name tag. Volunteering offered me the chance to meet the mayor of Kennesaw. And when he came back around later that day, I apologized, and we laughed about the entire incident. But come to find out, he's just as passionate about local history as I am. And having the chance to meet the mayor was one of the most influential things that I could have possibly done. You see, when you have the chance to become connected to people who share your interests and your hobbies, they can connect you with others who are passionate about the same things. Simplistically, people know people who do things that you like or want to do. Pursuing your passions is probably easier than you would think. NPR developed a list of 10 reasons why we like making lists. And number 10, lists keep us from procrastinating. So I've developed a list of 3 things that are very simple steps and ways that we can become connected and using our voices as young professionals. The first one's easy. It's probably the easiest. You can do that right here. Think about what you're passionate about. What social injustices make you upset? What hobbies do you have? How do you like to interact with people? If you're taking general education courses in college, you might stumble across a subject you never thought you'd be interested in, like bowling. If that's you right now, you're thinking, yes, I like bowling, but there is no social networking in that. And let me tell you, my friend, we have bowling leagues for every level of expertise. You can use what you're passionate about to become involved and to grow your network. The second step is to research. If you like books or reading, check out your local library. They often offer volunteer opportunities that you can help read to children, restock books, or even help teach computer skills. But if all of that sounds too intimidating, we can start smaller. Book clubs are advertised on social media, in neighborhoods, and even in local coffee shops. Discussing a book with someone else is just as much fun as reading alone. And the final step is to make a commitment to yourself to become involved, because no one can advocate for your passions like you can. That is why young professional engagement is so important. The National Recreation and Park Association in 2014 published a list of the benefits that young professionals receive from becoming involved. One of the many benefits that young professionals receive is that as young professional involvement increases, community support increases. And as community support increases, involvement increases. This is a cycle. Without young professional engagement, without you speaking out about what you are passionate about, how is the community going to know what issues, events, and programs are important to focus on? As I recently began the process of becoming a volunteer for an organ donation organization that I'd worked with before, they told me that I've already been doing the best form of outreach I could on their behalf, educating and informing others to become involved, even if that involvement is just checking the box on your driver's license to become an organ donor. Speaking out doesn't have to be groundbreaking to be effective. It's the fact that you're speaking out that matters. Becoming involved as a young professional will grow your connections and your network, but it will also share your voice with others who care about the same areas that you care about. College might be the place where we find our voices, but after college, taking steps outside of that box, that's where the impact happens. Thank you.